I watched the predator from about 3 meters while it scanned the area. He pretended to communicate, but this was a clever cover for his intentions. I watched him as he assessed the room and narrowed his search first to 3 places, then to 2. He appreciated both of his goals, and I realized he knows. He knows exactly which of them is weaker. The cop was right anyway. He just knows the weakest prey. Busy scanning, he paid no attention to me. He was in no hurry to make a decision, and I moved closer. Since I generally knew where this was going, he stopped, assessed the situation, and made a decision. His expression changed from appraising to friendly. I know that he is an athlete, a famous football player, and many women like him. Many of them are crazy about him, and I know that he has destroyed many families. I was looking at the toughest alpha wolf within a few miles, and he chose his prey. He headed towards the table. A pretty blue-eyed blonde in her early 30s in a blue dress was sitting next to a guy of the same age. He looks good. He's happily married, but it won't last. I intercepted him in front of the table and smiled. "Hi, do you remember me?" He was so busy watching his prey that he did not notice my approach. He looked at me and said, "Wait, what? No, I'm busy. I only sign autographs at official events." I shook my head. "It's sad, but I guess I'm just a statistic in your world. You seduced and had sex with my wife 8 months ago. We were here. You asked her to dance. She agreed despite my objections, and you danced with her. Then you invited her over and you had sex. On my creature anniversary." People raised their heads. His face changed when he realized that today's seduction was clearly not going to work. I looked around. All attention was drawn to us. The entire restaurant watched the drama unfold. The woman in the blue dress had no idea that if I hadn't added a little drama to the night, she would have betrayed her husband in the worst possible way. "Well, I'm sorry. It won't happen again." He exhaled contemptuously. I shook my head. "It's a matter of quantity. You like to shoot married women in front of their husbands. And it works. Rumor has it 2 or 3 a week in the off-season and once a week while you're playing football. Impressive numbers." He smiled. Then he said that I was one of the worst people on the planet. I grinned in response. 5 years. Let's estimate 100 women a year in the 5 years since you were drafted into the local team. You destroyed 500 marriages. I shook my head again. Let's say half of them reconciled, although in fact the marriage has already broken up. It will never be the same again. I wonder how many children cried their eyes out because their parents divorced because of you. Mine cried. He looked impassive, slightly embarrassed, but most likely was already thinking about how he could change tactics for the future. The hotel employee came over to silence me, so I turned on the countdown timer on my watch. 4 minutes 30 seconds. I studied police response times and estimated that this is how long it would take from calling 911 to the police bursting through the door. The timer beeped every minute until it reached 0. I pulled out my Glock and pointed it at Mark's head. The hotel employee retreated. The husband of the woman in the blue dress stood up and shielded his wife. I shook my head. He was ready to take a bullet for her, and she would have betrayed him if I had not changed the course of the party. None of them, of course, knew this, and I was not going to enlighten them. He looked nervous, but almost confident. It was a strange expression, as if he had been through this before. "My children cried their eyes out when we divorced," I said. At least 4 people recorded it on their phones. One noticed that I saw his phone and tried to hide it. "Hey, good luck," I told him. "Here's a short 30-second version of what's going on here. Mark seduces women in front of their husbands. This is his trick, cuckold husbands, by making sure they know about it. My dear wife danced with Mark and then came back." My watch beeped. 4 minutes. When I started explaining to her why it was shitty to me, she deliberately spilled wine on herself, I continued. She said she needed to go clean up and that it would take a few minutes. A few minutes. Turned into 20. I went looking for my wife and began to rage until the employee told me that she allegedly went to the toilet, and then my wife left with him. The police came and took me away to cool me down for 2 hours. The people around were shocked, and Mark looked more furious than anyone else. Now he has clearly reformulated his future conquests. The recording quartet turned into 24 people. Many, including the woman in the blue dress, looked shocked. I looked Mark in the eyes and said, "Take off your pants." Mark was surprised. I shook my pistol. "Take off your pants, you creature." "For what?" Mark asked. I said sarcastically, "Having cuckolded me, I became a raging homosexual, and now I'm dying to see your instrument with which you destroy marriages. Now, creature, take off your pants." Mark lowered his suit trousers. "Cowards, too," I added. Now he stood with his male instrument out. I looked at him and shook my head. "You are definitely an alpha wolf. I sat in the police car and looked at my watch. Imagine what pain this is. Although, no, you can't imagine," I continued after a second. "You can't love anyone but yourself." I looked at one of the guys with the phone. "Imagine that you know Mark's house is 50 minutes away, and 50 minutes have passed, and you're sitting in the back of a police car, looking at your watch. You can't close your mind's eye. That's all I'm saying. Could think it was that she was naked and he was having sex with her. The pain rolls in like a stream of fire. My watch beeps. 3 minutes, I said quietly. He takes what was promised only to me. Then you spend the next 2 hours handcuffed to a chair in the police station while he continues to have it. The policeman told me that this is a primal instinct and that most women interviewed anonymously would do the same in front of their husbands. There is a primal desire to mate with the alpha, and Mark is the absolute alpha. I suppressed the pain. I couldn't fail. I saved their marriage and they had no idea. I continued in a softer voice. She came home, talked crap about how it was just sex. Of course our marriage ended. She suggested I even the odds. Supermodel, escort, threesome, anything I want. I told her that I was happy just making love to her. I am monogamous, and as long as she responded in kind, everything was fine with me. I liked our connection. I liked making love to her. I liked looking at her. I admired her. And when we had sex, she screamed that she loved me. He destroyed it. I looked around and asked, "Would you guys be able to stay married? For real, knowing that, say, in a year you will be looking down on her, making love, and knowing full well what she thinks about Mark." I looked at the same guy's phone again. Pro tip for women: if you want to cuckold your husband, you will lose your marriage. The cop said that mating with an alpha is primal, and I understand, but women need to understand that for 99% of men, fidelity to a wife is also a primal need. A third to a half may reconcile for the sake of the children, but you will never have a real marriage again. My watch beeped. 2 minutes. I thought about my children, and the pain rose in another fiery stream. I suppressed it. I couldn't fail. I looked again at the guy with the phone. Fights. The pain on the children's faces when we told them we were getting a divorce. I started drinking and lost my job. Now I literally have nothing, and I'm about to be evicted to the street. She was my first and only. She became pregnant with me too early, and at 18, she gave birth to twins. It's stupid, but I was in love. My twins are 8 now. We got married on her 18th birthday, and every day I loved her more and more until that fateful night came. I adored her. I looked at Mark and said, "And you destroyed it." I took the safety off on the pistol. He looked worried, but his expression was still strange. I took a step aside. "You're not going to kill me, are you?" Mark asked. I replied, "It may not kill you. It will only cripple you, but you will no longer seduce other people's wives." I changed my aim and shot his manhood 3 times from the side to avoid the abdomen, and then a few more times in the groin to hit his leg. He fell and lay on the floor, and the women screamed, but Mark screamed even louder. The husband of the woman in the blue dress again obscured her. What irony. She looked at him as if he were a superhero, even more ironic. My watch beeped. 1 minute. I looked at the husband of the lady in the blue dress and asked, "What's your name?" He tensed, but I had the gun, so he answered, "Jim and Linda Blauhauser." "Do you have children?" I asked. 2. He answered, "What?" "Just curious." I put the gun on the table and said, "Don't touch the guns. The cops will be here very soon, and you better be away from the guns when they burst through the door." I would encourage everyone to put all hands on the table. Cops get nervous when faced with a gun situation. Oh, if there is a doctor in the room, you can attend to him. It was just between us. My watch beeped. The cops burst in 10 seconds later. The police were confused when they saw no one with a weapon, but continued to shout instructions. I continued to stand with my hands raised and said loudly, "I'm here. I did this. No one else will get hurt." I was arrested. During the trial, the defense tried to justify me with temporary insanity. The prosecutor didn't buy it one bit. I can't blame him. I got 5 to 8 years in a plea deal. I could get 30. I don't understand why they agreed to this deal. I received a light sentence from my point of view. Maybe they were worried that the temporary insanity would work. I served 5 years and 11 months. Mark has attended every parole hearing since I was 3 years old. He walked in, leaning on his cane, and I felt his burning hatred. I said I wasn't a danger to anyone except Mark, and he lost, returning to his bunk for another year. The victim's opinion is heard and taken into account. This is a good rule 99.9% of the time. Yeah. But Mark was an exception. After 5 years, Mark did not appear at the hearing for the first time. I think he finally got bored with me. I got parole and got out a week shy of 6 years from the day I shot him. I remember when I went to prison, it wasn't very good, but it wasn't as bad as I thought. They knew. I received more than one nod. I played by the general rules and made it a rule not to upset anyone. I went out, remembered the couple's name, and found them, Jim and Linda Blauhauser. I drove up in a friend's car on the anniversary of me shooting Mark. At least the internet suggested they were still married. They left the house. She was wearing that same blue dress when she walked to the car. He opened the car door for her. He hugged her, and she looked into his eyes and kissed him tenderly. It was a huge trigger. Over the years, this happened less and less, but now that same burning pain has returned. I had such wonderful love with my wife. I smiled. It was worth it. I saved one marriage. They still had the same innocent, pure love. 1 in 10 marriages. I saved one for sure, but how many more such cases would have happened if he had stayed on the team for, say, another 5 years? Surely hundreds. Mark was in his prime and gorgeous. How many were there after he retired from the sport? I will never know the true number, but I definitely saved one marriage. The parole boards always wanted me to feel regret. That's what I said. I lied. I couldn't feel any regret. I know he could have been hit by a bus the next day, but statistically speaking, I have saved hundreds of marriages. I had only been at the Parole Rehabilitation Center for 3 days when I received a call on my government-provided cell phone. I replied, "Hello?" "John Butler?" asked a male voice. "Yes," I answered. "I'm Tony Carruthers." He owned a trucking company and was willing to hire me and even train me to be a truck driver. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth, as they say. I was in Tony's office. There was another guy sitting next to Tony, and there was another empty chair. He asked me only one question. "Are you going to shoot anyone else?" "No," I answered. Tony nodded. "I saw the news. Those videos they took of you shooting Mark went viral. The police chief lost his job because of it. They sacrificed him. He protected Mark by arresting angry husbands and holding them for hours. It showed up in email newsletters. Everyone in the city council defended the football star, but they all blamed it on him." Tony paused, thought, and said, "It doesn't matter to me. Your training starts on Monday. You won't be rich, but you'll be able to afford a decent life." Tony said, "Joe, is there anything you want to add?" Joe said, "I own a used car store. I have a 14-year-old Civic with 40,000 miles on it. The old lady, the dandelion of God, didn't drive it to church on Sundays. It looks like crap because she always didn't fit in the gate, but it's Honda with 40,000 miles, an ordinary vehicle, and I will sell it to you for $100. I smiled and shook my head. "I'm sorry, I don't have $100. I'm in rehab." Tony pushed a $100 bill towards me. I slipped $100 to Joe. Joe said, "I have an apartment to rent that I just can't rent." I'll rent it to you for $400 a month this year." It couldn't be true, and I said, "It costs more." Joe replied, "Then you won't whine when I raise your rent next year? Say yes, fool." I nodded. "Yes." I asked, "Why?" "It's too good to be true." "Why?" Tony said, "We have something in common. All four of us." I said, "Who's the fourth guy? I only see three." Tony said, "He's late." He looked at Joe and said, "Joe has been my best friend since elementary school. We're doing well. I own a trucking company, and he owns a parking lot and several apartment buildings. We're not poor basement dwellers, but our wives really loved Mark. We've all walked the same path as you." Joe continued, "Our wives met Mark on the same night, about 4 years before you met Mark. We were supposed to spend a night in the town with our wives. Imagine that crap, Mark and our wives on top of that. They had a threesome." I winced. Tony said, "Stop the hate. We both got married again because we love being married. The second wife is younger, by the way, not as beautiful as the first, but faithful, and she just loves making love. You can start over. We give you a chance at a new life. You are 32 years old. Let go of hatred, or it will consume you. Mark is dead, and your ex-wife has become the laughingstock of her neighbors. Let it go and accept the life we offer you." I smiled and said, "What? Wait, I'm not supposed to be happy when someone dies, but in this case it's different, isn't it?" Joe grinned. "Yeah." I smiled too. "You can't be happy when someone dies, but for Mark, I made an exception. Mark committed suicide. The higher you rise, the harder it is to fall. He did it about 6 months ago. Imagine that he went from a professional football player who could get any girl to a man without a man's tool and with a broken leg. No career, no girls. He still had a lot of money, but he wanted more." "How did my ex-wife become a laughingstock?" I asked. "By law, I am prohibited from meeting my ex-wife and children." Tony said, "I found out something, knowing you wouldn't be allowed to contact her. She remarried about 4 years ago. Your kids are fine and both are doing well in school. I didn't do anything illegal, just looked at the official page and went to their school's website." I asked, "So why is my ex-wife a laughingstock?" Tony laughed, typed a few words into his laptop and opened it. These were the results of a Google search for Mark Lavalier sex tape. There were thousands of views. Tony said, "It looks like Mark slept with the wife of someone who had access to Mark's property, or a hacker, I don't care. He knew someone who knew about distributing videos online." Joe said, "He had cameras all over his bedroom. There was a studio in the basement. There was a guy running cameras hidden in the light fixture and in the walls. He had 3 views of his bed and another camera in the shower. Somehow on 50 websites downloaded all his videos at once." Tony clicked on the first result and I took a closer look at the browser. It said, "Join to get access to all 591 wives' videos with Mark Lavalier from all 3 angles. Bonus shower footage." Joe looked at me and repeated, "Get rid of the hate. We've waited so long to help you. You have friends here. We were all betrayed by our wives for him. Now he's dead." The weight lifted off me and I nodded. I damn near cried as I relaxed. A minute later I asked, "So who's the other chair for?" I heard the door open and then a voice. "Sorry for being late. I had a court hearing and soon I'll have to come back again. I can sit down and talk." I looked back. My prosecutor looked at me. I smiled and left. Subscribe